So, welcome back to the weekly portion, but we have seen the first verse of each weekly portion of the Torah over the last year. So, what we're going to do in the next year, God willing, is examine one of the verses, probably the first verses of the Haftara. And gradually, we'll talk about what is a Haftara and what is the origin of the Haftara and what is the meaning of the word Haftara. For the time being, for today, I'll just explain that the Haftarah is a selected reading from the prophets that accompanies the reading of the weekly portion from the Torah, usually having some kind of a connection to the text that is read during that weekly portion of the Torah. As I said, gradually we'll talk about the history and the etymology of the word Haftarah and so forth. But today, as an introductory, we'll read not just the first verse of the Haftarah of this weekly portion of Bo, we'll also read the blessing that we say before the Haftarah. Gradually, we'll go over the blessings that we say after the Haftarah, and they might actually be connected to the reason we read the Haftarah. So, summarizing what we'll do today, we'll read the blessing for the Haftarah. Then we'll read the first verse of the Haftarah of this week and talk a little bit about the grammar or the language or what have you. And then hopefully we'll also make an interesting question for you to answer about one of the connections, many connections that there are between the weekly portion of this week in the Torah and other stories generally from the prophets. Okay, so this is the blessing we say before we read the Haftarah. And the Haftarah has similar yet not identical melody to the Torah. I'm following the Ashkenazi tradition, the European tradition, and let's read. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha בנביאים טובים ורצה ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. That is the blessing we say before the Haftarah, and then we start reading the Haftarah. And the Haftarah this week, according to the Ashkenazi tradition, is taken from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 46, verses 13 to 28, and we'll read the first verse of the Haftarah. I'll read it regular, then with a melody. Hadavar asher diber Adonai el Yirmiyahu hanavi. לבוא נבוכדרצר מלך בבל להכות את ארץ מצרים. Now with the melody of the Haftarah. הדבר אשר דיבר אדוני אל ירמיהו הנביא לבוא נבוכדרצר מלך בבל להכות at Eretz Mitzrayim. A little bit about the grammar. So we've talked about all kinds of things in the past. So we'll make the grammatical part today not too long. Here we have an inner object. So the verb is diber. Okay. And hadavar is actually the object. Here it's interesting. That the object is the noun modified by the relative clause opening with the word asher is actually the object of the verb. It happens in Hebrew, and we don't have a retrospective object pronoun in this case, so we don't have hadavar asher diber oto Adonai. It is understood by the context. We don't have to have that retrospective object pronoun. So we have an inner object because the root of the verb and the root of its object are the same root. The a message that was spoken, okay? Or the message that was messaged, if you will, or the word that was worded, the matter that was mattered, okay? In Hebrew, it's the same root. In English, obviously, we use a different root. Then, also interesting here is Nebuchadrezzar. You know this guy. And in English, he's called Nebuchadnezzar. So why do we have a resh here in the Hebrew and an N here in the English? So the fact of the matter is that this name, Nebuchadnezzar, appears in the Bible in two forms. One of them is with a resh, Nebuchadrezzar, and the other is with a nun, Nebuchadnezzar, which is closer to what we know as Nebuchadnezzar. This is an Akkadian name. Nabu, which is the god of wisdom, god of prophecy. Kuduru or Kuduri, firstborn, probably. It was thought to be border stones. Today we understand it's probably firstborn. And Utsur, which has to do with keeping. So Nabu, the god Nabu, okay, keep my firstborn. This is kind of an imperative form. So Nabu Kudu Utsur, or Nebuchadnezzar, or Nebuchadrezzar here is a name that means, oh, the god Nabu, false god of the Babylonians, one of the considered to be the god of scribes, of wisdom, of prophecy, keep my firstborn. Okay, we have similar names in other cultures. And the whole story of the Haftara of the weekly portion of Bo is talking about Egypt being defeated by Babylon. And again, that is the obvious connection to the reading of the Torah, because the Torah speaks about God punishing the Egyptians, the plagues, the conclusions of the 10 plagues, and also the Haftara is talking about the punishment of Egypt. Now, a riddle, a question for all of you Bible lovers. In the weekly portion, okay, Moses is telling the people that every woman should go to her neighbors and ask all kinds of vessels and utensils. Where else in the Bible was a woman commanded by a prophet to go to her neighbors and borrow vessels? So that's a question for you, and answer in the comments of this video.